The desperate signature Camila Vega stared at her phone as another rejection email appeared. 6 months since graduating from the textile design program, and still nothing but polite, "Thank you for your interest" messages. Her innovative fiber art techniques that had earned her honors at school weren't opening any doors in the industry. The small apartment she shared with her roommate felt particularly oppressive today. Rent was due in a week, and her bank account couldn't handle another month of uncertainty. Her father's medical bills back home in Ecuador weren't going to pay themselves either. "Maybe I should just take that retail job," she murmured to herself, scrolling through more listings. That's when the email arrived. The subject line simply read, "Your portfolio, Luminance Textiles." Luminance was no ordinary company. They were revolutionizing sustainable luxury fabrics, their innovations coveted by the most prestigious fashion houses worldwide. Camila had sent them her portfolio months ago, but had given up hope. The email was peculiar. No formal greeting, just a straightforward offer. A 6-month contract position, salary that made her eyes widen, and a request to sign the attached agreement within 24 hours if interested. No interview. No details about the specific role. "This has to be spam," Camila told her roommate Olivia that evening. "Luminance? Are you kidding?" "They're legitimate," Olivia said, examining the email on Camila's laptop. "The sender domain checks out. Look, there's even contact information for their legal department. But why would they hire me without an interview? Your portfolio is exceptional. Maybe they saw something they needed." Olivia shrugged. "What do you have to lose?" Camila spent hours reading the contract. It contained extensive confidentiality clauses and mentioned working on proprietary innovations, but provided little clarity about her actual responsibilities. The salary, however, would solve all her immediate problems. "I can always quit if it's terrible," she reasoned, signing the document with shaking hands. 3 days later, Camila stood before the gleaming headquarters of Luminance Textiles. The security guard checked her name against a list and handed her a badge with restricted access clearance. "7th floor," he instructed. "Someone will meet you there." The elevator opened directly into a sleek reception area where a woman with a severe bob and piercing eyes waited. "Ms. Vega, I'm Daphne Walsh, executive assistant to Mr. Thornfield." Her handshake was brief. "Before proceeding, you'll need to sign these additional documents." "More paperwork?" "I already signed the contract. These are specialized non-disclosure agreements. Mr. Thornfield is extremely particular about confidentiality." Camila hesitated. "Can I at least know what I'll be working on?" "Mr. Thornfield will explain everything personally. But without these signatures, I cannot take you further." Daphne's expression remained impassive. "The elevator is behind you if you've changed your mind." Camila thought of her father's voice on their last call. "Sometimes, mija, the biggest opportunities require the biggest leaps of faith." She signed the papers. Daphne led her through a series of corridors requiring keycard access at every turn. They finally stopped at an unmarked door. "Remember," Daphne said, "whatever happens in this room stays in this room. Mr. Thornfield values his privacy above all else." The door opened to reveal not an office, but a vast studio space filled with textile equipment, design stations, and walls of materials Camila had only read about in industry journals. Standing at the center was Julian Thornfield himself, founder of Luminance, notorious recluse, and textile genius. He didn't smile or extend his hand. "Ms. Vega," he said quietly, "welcome to Project Chrysalis. From this moment forward, you work exclusively for me, not for Luminance, for me." The hidden workshop Camila stood frozen, staring at Julian Thornfield. In person, he was different from the few blurry photographs that occasionally appeared in industry publications. Tall and lean, with dark hair threaded with silver at the temples, he had intense eyes that seemed to evaluate every detail about her. His presence commanded the room despite his quiet demeanor. "I don't understand," Camila finally managed. "If I'm not working for Luminance, then what exactly am I doing here?" Julian gestured toward the expansive studio. "This is my personal workshop. While I am the CEO of Luminance, this project operates independently from the company's main initiatives. Only 3 people in the organization know of its existence: myself, Daphne, and now you. He walked toward a large table covered with samples of fabric unlike anything Camilla had ever seen. They seemed to shift in color and texture as the light hit them from different angles. Your graduate thesis on biomimetic textile structures caught my attention, Julian continued. Your techniques for embedding responsive elements within natural fibers align perfectly with research I've been conducting privately for the past 3 years. Camilla approached the table cautiously, drawn to the mesmerizing materials. These are extraordinary. I've never seen fibers behave this way before. Because they don't exist anywhere else, Julian replied. What you're looking at is the result of combining traditional weaving techniques with molecular-level programming. The fabrics respond to environmental conditions, temperature, humidity, light, changing their properties accordingly. Her fingers hovered over a swatch that seemed to breathe. May I? Julian nodded once. Camilla touched the fabric, gasping as it warmed and subtly shifted beneath her fingertips. It's responding to your body heat, he explained. Each piece can be calibrated to different stimuli. The applications are limitless. Medical textiles that monitor vital signs, adaptive clothing for extreme environments, conservation materials that evolve with ecosystems. This could revolutionize multiple industries, Camilla whispered. Why keep it secret? Julian's expression darkened. Innovation requires protection. The last time I shared a breakthrough prematurely, it was stolen and corrupted for profit. I won't make that mistake again. Over the next weeks, Camilla established a strange new routine. Each morning, she entered through a private entrance, using a series of key cards and biometric scanners. The workshop became her entire world from dawn until evening. No contact with other employees. No discussion of her work outside the secure space. Just endless hours of experimentation, design, and refinement under Julian's exacting guidance. At first, his manner was clinical and distant. He provided precise instructions, critiqued her work with unsparing honesty, and rarely engaged in personal conversation. But as days turned to weeks, Camilla noticed subtle changes. He began asking her opinion more frequently. Their conversations extended beyond technical specifications to design philosophy and creative intent. One evening, as Camilla was preparing to leave, Julian surprised her by asking, "Why textiles? What drew you to this medium specifically?" The question caught her off guard. After a moment's reflection, she answered, "Fabric is the most intimate technology humans have ever created. It touches our skin, protects us, expresses our identity. It's both functional and deeply personal." Something shifted in Julian's expression, a fleeting softness quickly masked. "An interesting perspective. We'll continue tomorrow." That night, Camilla couldn't sleep. The secrecy that had initially seemed exciting now felt increasingly oppressive. Who was Julian Thornfield, really? Why isolate himself and this groundbreaking work from his own company? Despite the generous salary and fascinating challenges, questions multiplied in her mind. Her roommate Olivia had grown suspicious about Camilla's vague descriptions of her new job. "You leave before sunrise, return after dark, and can't tell me anything about what you do all day," she pointed out. "Either you've joined a cult or you're involved in something illegal." "It's just confidential R&D," Camilla insisted. "Very sensitive intellectual property." The truth was more complicated. As the weeks passed, Camilla realized she wasn't just developing textiles. She was becoming entangled in Julian Thornfield's carefully guarded world. The workshop contained personal items, books with margin notes, photographs of landscapes, sketches that seemed more emotional than technical. Sometimes she caught him watching her work with an expression that went beyond professional assessment. One morning, Camilla arrived to find Julian already there, which was unusual. He typically appeared after she had settled in. He was standing before a wall-sized mood board newly installed overnight. "I've been considering your suggestion about emotional responsiveness in the fibers," he said without preamble. "If these materials truly represent an interface between humans and their environment, they should respond to more than physical stimuli." The board contained images of natural phenomena, murmurations of starlings, bioluminescent waves, aspen groves connected by single root systems, collective intelligence. Camilla observed, moving closer. Systems that respond as unified organisms while maintaining individual components. Julian nodded. I'd like to explore integrating that concept into our next prototype series. For the first time, he'd said our rather than my project. The subtle shift sent an unexpected warmth through Camilla. Despite her reservations about the secrecy surrounding her work, she couldn't deny the growing connection she felt to the project, to the hidden workshop, and increasingly to the enigmatic man who had brought her into this strange, secluded world. As she began sketching new designs incorporating these concepts, Camilla noticed a small photograph partially hidden beneath other materials on the board. It showed a younger Julian standing beside a woman with brilliant red hair, both laughing beside what appeared to be a traditional loom. "Who is she?" Camilla asked before she could stop herself. Julian went completely still. When he finally spoke, his voice had a brittleness she'd never heard before. Someone from another lifetime. Let's focus on the work at hand. But something had changed. A door had cracked open, revealing that Julian Thornfield's secrets extended far beyond revolutionary textiles. And Camilla was beginning to suspect that understanding those secrets might be essential to the success of Project Chrysalis, and perhaps to Julian himself. Patterns of truth. 3 months into Project Chrysalis, Camilla had settled into a rhythm. The isolation that had initially disturbed her had become almost comfortable. The workshop was a world unto itself, a sanctuary of creativity and innovation where conventional limitations fell away. And at the center of this world was Julian, whose brilliant mind and exacting standards both challenged and inspired her. They were making remarkable progress. The responsive textiles had evolved from interesting curiosities to functional prototypes. Camilla had developed a technique for embedding memory into the fibers, allowing the fabric to learn from interactions and adapt over time. Julian's theoretical framework, combined with her intuitive approach to structure and pattern, had created something greater than either could have achieved alone. But as their professional collaboration deepened, the personal distance Julian maintained became increasingly conspicuous. He shared his knowledge freely but revealed nothing of himself. The glimpse of vulnerability when she'd noticed the photograph had been swiftly buried beneath layers of professional detachment. One evening, as a thunderstorm battered the windows of the workshop, Camilla was completing documentation on their latest prototype. Julian had been unusually quiet, standing before the expansive windows watching lightning illuminate the cityscape. "I think we should test this batch under electromagnetic influence," he said suddenly. "The conductivity properties might—" A tremendous crack of thunder interrupted him. The lights flickered, then went out completely. Emergency generators hummed to life, casting the workshop in dim amber light. "Backup systems engaged," announced an automated voice. "Main power restored in approximately 15 minutes. Julian remained by the window, his silhouette stark against flashes of lightning. Something about his stillness seemed wrong. "Julian?" Camilla approached cautiously. "Are you all right?" When he turned, his composure had fractured. His breathing was rapid, his normally steady hands trembling slightly. "I don't particularly care for storms," he said, attempting nonchalance but failing. "Should we move away from the windows?" Camilla suggested gently. He nodded, following her to the central workstation. The intimate half-light of the emergency systems stripped away his usual authority, making him seem suddenly human and vulnerable. "There was a storm the night of the accident," he said after a long silence, surprising Camilla with this unexpected offering. "Electrical failure, equipment malfunction, variables that shouldn't have aligned but did." Camilla remained quiet, afraid any response might cause him to retreat back behind his walls. "Her name was Eleanor," Julian continued, his voice low. "Dr. Eleanor Reeves, brilliant materials scientist. We were partners in every sense, research, business, life. The responsive textile concept was originally hers. Another flash of lightning, another rumble of thunder. Julian's hands clenched on the edge of the table. "We were working late in our private lab, testing a new conductive polymer under high-voltage conditions. The storm interfered with the safety systems. There was a power surge, then a fire. His voice became clinical, as though distancing himself from the memory. I was across the room. She was at the testing station. By the time I reached her, "Julian, I'm so sorry," Camilla whispered. The official investigation ruled it an accident. Luminance provided compensation to her family, implemented new safety protocols. Life continued. His expression hardened. But I knew the truth. The equipment had been sabotaged. Industrial espionage. Someone wanted our research. Instead, they killed the most brilliant mind in textile innovation. Camilla struggled to process this revelation. Did you find who was responsible? No, but I found evidence that someone within Luminance had been compromised. A security breach that was never traced to its source. Julian's eyes met hers, fierce with long-contained emotion. That's why Project Chrysalis exists outside the company structure. That's why only 3 people know about it. I won't risk another life or this innovation to corporate sabotage. The main lights flickered back on, dispelling the intimate atmosphere. Julian straightened, visibly reconstructing his professional demeanor. Eleanor believed these responsive textiles could change how humans interact with their environment. He continued more formally. Not just as passive protection, but as an extension of our sensory experience. A second skin that enhances rather than simply shields. Camilla's mind raced. That's why you hired me. My thesis on biomimetic structures, it echoed her approach. Julian nodded. Your work showed the same intuitive understanding of how textiles could function as living systems. But where Eleanor was focused on the scientific principles, your perspective is more humanistic. You see fabric as storytelling, as emotional expression. Is that why you keep this project separate from your role as CEO? To protect Eleanor's vision? Partly. Julian moved to a cabinet she'd never seen him open before. He unlocked it with a key he wore around his neck beneath his shirt. From inside, he withdrew a journal bound in faded leather. These are Eleanor's final research notes, her theories about responsive textiles as emotional conduits. The industry would dismiss them as fanciful, unscientific. But I believe she was on to something profound. He hesitated, then held the journal out to Camilla. I think you might understand what she was trying to achieve. The gesture wasn't just about sharing research. It was an act of trust so significant that Camilla almost couldn't breathe as she accepted the journal. In this moment, she wasn't just Julian's employee or collaborator. She had become the custodian of something precious and deeply personal. I'll be careful with it, she promised, understanding the weight of what she'd been given. I know you will. For the first time since they'd met, Julian smiled, a small, sad gesture that transformed his face. Eleanor would have liked you, Camilla. She always said the future of textiles wouldn't be written by scientists alone, but by those who understand the poetry of thread and fiber. As the storm retreated into the distance, something fundamental had shifted between them. The invisible thread connecting Julian's past to their present work had become tangible, and with it came a new dimension to Project Chrysalis, one that honored a brilliant woman's legacy while creating space for something new to emerge. Unraveling threads, Eleanor's journal changed everything. Camilla spent days immersed in the elegantly documented theories and heartfelt observations about the relationship between textiles and human experience. The pages revealed not just a brilliant scientist, but a woman with profound empathy and vision, someone who saw fabric as a medium for connection rather than just protection. The responsive qualities we seek aren't merely functional but fundamentally relational, Eleanor had written. A truly advanced textile doesn't just react to environmental stimuli, but establishes a dialogue between wearer and environment. Inspired by these insights, Camilla began integrating Eleanor's theoretical framework with her own design approach. The results were extraordinary. Fabrics that didn't just respond to touch and temperature but seemed to anticipate needs, adapting their properties based on subtle cues from the wearer's body. Julian watched this evolution with growing emotion he couldn't entirely conceal. One afternoon, as Camilla demonstrated a prototype that changed both texture and thermal properties in response to stress hormones in perspiration, he observed quietly. You've captured exactly what she envisioned. They worked with renewed purpose. their collaboration deepening into something that transcended professional boundaries. Late nights in the workshop often extended into conversations about design philosophy, shared meals ordered from nearby restaurants, and a gradual dismantling of the walls Julian had built around himself. Camilla learned that before Eleanor's death, Julian had been different, more open, more engaged with the world. His retreat into isolation and rigid control had been a response to loss and betrayal. And while he maintained his vigilance about Project Chrysalis, he began tentatively to trust again. Then came the breach. Camilla arrived one morning to find Julian and Daphne in intense conversation. They fell silent when she entered, both looking grim. "What's happened?" she asked, setting down her bag. Julian's face was taut with controlled anger. "Someone accessed our secure server last night. Preliminary designs for the responsive membrane textile were downloaded and copied." Camilla felt the blood drain from her face. "How is that possible? This system isn't even connected to Luminance's main network." "It was accessed using Daphne's security credentials," Julian said flatly. Daphne's usually composed expression was stricken. "I never accessed the system remotely. Never. Someone must have cloned my authentication protocols." "I've initiated emergency security measures," Julian continued. "The project is now in complete lockdown. No digital communications in or out." The implications settled over Camilla like a weight. "You think it's happening again?" "Like with Eleanor." Julian didn't answer directly. Instead, he turned to Daphne. "Initiate protocol sunset. Inform the board I'll be unavailable for the next 48 hours due to a personal emergency." After Daphne left, Julian paced the workshop, his controlled facade cracking. "I should have anticipated this. The moment we achieved a significant breakthrough, we became a target." "Julian," Camilla said carefully, "who knows I'm working for you? Besides Daphne? No one." He stopped pacing. "The employment contract routes through a shell company. As far as Luminance's records show, you were never hired." A cold realization settled over Camilla. "So officially I don't exist. If something happens to me, nothing will happen to you." Julian's intensity startled her. "I won't let history repeat itself." That afternoon, everything accelerated. Julian moved key prototypes and research materials to an off-site location. He instructed Camilla to tell no one about the security breach, not even her roommate. "Until we identify the source of the leak, we can't trust anyone," he insisted. But the breach had already set larger forces in motion. By evening, industry blogs were buzzing with rumors about a revolutionary textile breakthrough at Luminance. By the following morning, technology news sites were reporting leaked images of what they called emotional responsive fabric, crude versions of Camilla's early designs. Camilla discovered the news when Olivia burst into her room, laptop in hand. "Isn't this what you've been working on?" "It's all over TechWire." The screen showed blurry photographs of textile samples unmistakably similar to their prototypes, alongside speculation about applications ranging from medical monitoring to enhanced athletic wear. "I need to call Julian," Camilla said, reaching for her secure phone. But before she could dial, her regular phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. "Ms. Vega?" The voice was brisk, authoritative. "This is Regina Winters, Chief Legal Officer at Luminance Textiles. We need you to come to headquarters immediately regarding your unauthorized research activities." Camilla's heart pounded. "I don't understand. My work is authorized by whom, Ms. Vega? According to our records, you have never been employed by Luminance. Yet evidence suggests you've been conducting research using company resources and proprietary technologies." The voice hardened. "This is a very serious situation. Corporate espionage carries significant legal penalties." "This is absurd. Julian Thornfield himself hired me." "Mr. Thornfield has been unavailable since yesterday. The board is handling this matter directly." There was a pause. "A car is being sent to your address. I suggest you cooperate fully." After the call ended, Camilla tried Julian's secure line repeatedly. No answer. She tried Daphne with the same result. Panic rising, she gathered Eleanor's journal and her personal research notes, hiding them in her apartment before the corporate car arrived. At Luminance headquarters, she was escorted not to the hidden workshop, but to a sterile conference room where 3 stern-faced executives waited. Regina Winters, flanked by the chief financial officer and head of security, laid out the accusations. Unauthorized access to Luminance facilities, theft of intellectual property, and suspected corporate espionage. We have security footage of you entering this building for months using credentials that were never officially issued, Regina stated. Can you explain that? I was hired directly by Julian Thornfield for a confidential project, Camilla insisted. Ask him. Mr. Thornfield has been incommunicado since news of the leak broke. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? The CFO's tone was accusatory. Meanwhile, early-stage designs from what appears to be your work have appeared online. You think I leaked them? Why would I sabotage my own project? Perhaps to establish priority before selling the technology to competitors, suggested the security chief. It wouldn't be the first time a promising researcher tried to leverage their position. The questions continued for hours. Without Julian to verify her story, Camilla's explanation about the secret project sounded increasingly implausible. They demanded access to her personal devices, her apartment, any research materials she possessed. I want a lawyer, Camilla finally said, exhausted and frightened. Of course, Regina replied coldly. In the meantime, you are barred from Luminance property. Any attempt to access our facilities or contact our employees will result in immediate legal action. As security escorted her from the building, Camilla felt the dream she'd been living collapse around her. In the space of hours, she had gone from valued innovator to suspected criminal. And Julian, the man she had come to trust, perhaps even to love, had vanished when she needed him most. Back in her apartment, she found Olivia waiting anxiously. What happened? There are reporters calling asking about your connection to some breakthrough textile technology. Camilla sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. It's all falling apart, Liv, everything, and I can't even explain why because of those damn NDAs. Her secure phone remained silent. Julian's disappearance felt like betrayal, reopening the wound of all the other rejections she'd faced in her career. Had he set her up to take the fall if the project was exposed? Had everything, his gradual opening up, their growing closeness, been manipulation? As night fell, Camilla sat with Eleanor's journal, tracing the elegant handwriting of a woman who had also trusted Julian Thornfield with her brilliance, her vision, perhaps even her heart. A woman who had died because of that trust. What would you do, Eleanor? She whispered to the empty room. Just before midnight, as Camilla finally drifted into troubled sleep, her secure phone chimed with a text message. A single line from an unknown number. The pattern reveals itself at the broken thread. Come to where we began. Woven together dawn found Camilla standing before Luminance headquarters, heart racing as she approached the private entrance she'd used that first day. Her security credentials had been revoked, but the message, surely from Julian, suggested she could still find a way in. The reference to where we began had to mean the workshop. Security had been heightened following the breach. Guards patrolled the perimeter, and additional scanners had been installed at every entrance. Camilla circled the building, searching for an opening, when a service van pulled up to a loading dock. The driver, Daphne, barely recognizable in maintenance coveralls, caught her eye and nodded almost imperceptibly. Minutes later, Camilla was being hurried through service corridors, heart pounding with each security camera they passed. Julian's waiting, Daphne whispered. We don't have much time. The workshop had been transformed. Equipment was dismantled, materials packed into crates. Julian stood amid the dismantling of their shared world, looking simultaneously exhausted and energized. Camilla. Her name on his lips carried a wealth of emotion. I'm sorry about yesterday. I couldn't risk contacting you directly until I confirmed you weren't being monitored. The board thinks I'm a corporate spy, she said, anger and relief battling within her. They're threatening legal action. My career is probably over. And you disappeared? I know, and I'll make it right. Julian gestured to the disassembled workshop. But first, we need to secure the true innovation. He led her to a sealed case containing their most advanced prototype, the fabric that responded not just to physical stimuli, but to emotional states. The culmination of Eleanor's theories and Camilla's intuitive design approach. This is what someone tried to steal, Julian explained. But the leaked designs were early-stage concepts, incomplete. Whoever accessed our server didn't get the core technology, the emotional responsiveness algorithms you developed based on Eleanor's framework. Who was behind the breach? Julian's expression darkened. The same person responsible for the sabotage that killed Eleanor. I've spent the last 24 hours gathering evidence. He handed Camilla a tablet containing financial records, encrypted communications, and surveillance footage. Victor Harlow, chairman of the board. He's been selling Luminance innovations to competitors for years, disguising the transactions through a network of shell companies. Camilla reviewed the evidence, her horror growing. He arranged the accident and tried to frame you for this breach when he realized how close we were to a breakthrough. Julian's voice was tight with controlled rage. The board meeting starts in an hour. Harlow expects to emerge with control of Project Chrysalis and you discredited as an industrial spy. But you have a plan. A ghost of a smile touched Julian's lips. Always. The Luminance boardroom buzzed with tension as executives gathered for the emergency meeting. Victor Harlow presided at the head of the table, projecting confidence as he prepared to consolidate power following the security crisis. When Julian Thornfield entered, conversation ceased. He moved with purpose, Camilla beside him and Daphne following with several security officers. Julian, Harlow greeted smoothly, we've been concerned about your absence during this crisis. I imagine you were, Julian replied, his voice carrying a dangerous calm. Especially since I was gathering evidence of your long-standing industrial espionage activities. The accusation landed like a thunderbolt. Before Harlow could respond, Julian presented the evidence, financial trails linking him to competitor payments, communications arranging the theft of proprietary technology, and most damning, technical specifications proving the sabotage that had caused Eleanor's death. This is absurd, Harlow blustered. You've clearly manufactured this evidence to cover your own unauthorized activities with this uncredentialed designer. Ms. Vega is not only fully credentialed but has been operating under my direct authority on a project approved by this board 3 years ago. Julian activated the room's display system, bringing up the original authorization for Project Chrysalis, a special initiative reporting directly to the CEO with discretionary funding and complete confidentiality. You deliberately concealed the nature of this project, Harlow accused. With good reason, Julian countered. After Eleanor's death, I had evidence of a security breach at the highest levels but couldn't identify the source. Project Chrysalis continued her work while operating outside standard corporate channels, precisely to protect it from whoever had betrayed us before. As the board absorbed these revelations, Camilla stepped forward. What you've seen online is a fraction of what we've achieved. The true innovation remains secure, a textile technology that responds to emotional states, creating a genuine interface between humans and their environment. She activated the prototype she wore beneath her jacket, a shawl of luminous fabric that shifted in color and texture as she spoke, visually translating her emotional state into patterns of light and movement. The board watched, transfixed, as the fabric responded to her rising confidence, glowing with increasing intensity. This is the culmination of Dr. Eleanor Reeves's theoretical framework and my design approach, Camilla explained. Not just a technical achievement, but a new paradigm for how textiles can function as emotional conduits. The demonstration transformed the atmosphere in the room. Even as security officers moved to detain Harlow, the other board members were captivated by the implications of the technology unfolding before them. In the chaotic hours that followed, Julian and Camilla navigated a complex transition. With Harlow removed, the board voted unanimously to formally integrate Project Chrysalis into Luminance's official research division, but with conditions that protected both the innovation and its creators. Camilla was appointed Director of Biomimetic Design, leading a new division focused on emotionally responsive textiles. Julian, while remaining CEO, would partner directly with her, bringing Eleanor's vision and their shared work into the light. 3 months later, they stood together at the official unveiling of the technology. The exhibition space vibrated with excitement as industry leaders, medical professionals, and environmental scientists experienced the responsive textiles firsthand. In a quiet moment before the doors opened to the public, Julian found Camilla adjusting a display of fabric that rippled like water in response to proximity. "Eleanor would be proud," he said softly, "not just of the technology, but of how you've helped bring it into the world." Camilla smoothed the fabric, watching it respond to her touch. "I wish I could have known her." "In many ways you do." Julian took her hand, his usual reserve softened by months of shared purpose and growing trust. "You understood her vision in ways even I couldn't. You found the human element in the science, the fabric beneath." Camilla's other hand warmed and began to glow, with soft amber light responding, not to any external stimulus, but to the emotional connection flowing between them. "It still seems impossible," she said, "watching the patterns form and evolve. That fabric can translate feeling into form, is it?" Julian's eyes held hers. "Humans have always encoded their emotions into textiles, from wedding veils to mourning clothes, from comfort blankets to ceremonial robes. We've just made the conversation two-way. Around them, the exhibition pieces responded to their creator's presence, illuminating, shifting, adapting in a symphony of technology and emotion that represented not just a scientific breakthrough, but a deeply personal journey. I signed that contract because I was desperate," Camilla reflected. "I stayed because the work was revolutionary, but that's not why I'm here now." "Why are you here now?" Julian asked, though something in his expression suggested he already knew the answer. Camilla gestured to the space around them. Not just the exhibition, but everything it represented. Trust rebuilt, secrets transformed into shared purpose, isolation replaced by connection. "Because some patterns only reveal themselves when different threads come together," she said, "and this is where our threads belong." As the doors opened and the public flowed in to witness the future of textile innovation, Julian and Camilla stood side by side, their separate journeys woven into a single story, as responsive and resilient as the fabric that had brought them together.